Hey guys, David here with a really quick review of the latest episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. titled The All Madame's Men. It's a kind of a play on the All the King's Men type of thing. And I have to keep it kind of quick and kind of on the down low because it is a little late at night and my mom's about to go to sleep and blah blah blah. People are sleeping. So I have to make this quick and short and to the point, but wow. This episode starts off rather amazing. I mean, it gets like a humongous load of brownie points for the way it starts off with May and Daisy escaping the Triskelion, but the best fuck yeah moment that I haven't experienced in a very long time from a TV show, not even The Walking Dead does this sort of thing, where Daisy, now with her newfound powers, just blasts Madame Hydra out of the window. I'm like, finally, somebody just deals with this bitch in the most proper way possible, and she just slams the ground, and that pretty much incapacitates her for the rest of the episode. And I like that this was used very effectively because we're starting to see things kind of move into position for the end game, especially because of the way this episode ends with Coulson's rousing speech. It's like the show's way of saying, hey, we're culminating up to the final moments of season 4 because now the two worlds are starting to blend together. We started off with just the framework. In this episode, we have a substantial lot more of the real world than we did ever before. Not only do we see more of Ada kind of planning her things out in the real world, building the machine, and we also see a slight connection there where we have some Stranger Things type of thing going on where you got the upside down. Here it's a similar thing where we have Trip and Simmons, and I like that the show's utilizing Trip very well. It's like, hey, it's a make-believe world, might as well keep him around a little bit longer instead of just having be like a cameo in one episode. He's actually contributing to the whole thing, so it's almost like season 2 all over again. But I like the cuts back and forth between the real world and the little location that Simmons and Trip were in being the same exact location, only on different universes. And I love that because it's kind of like the show's way of saying, hey, these two plot lines are now starting to kind of meld together. And not only that, but we also see Russian Dude for the first time, I think, in this entire pod of episodes. We finally see good old Russian Dude. I keep blanking on his name, but super ripped Russian Dude who's trying to enjoy his vodka, only now he can't because he's now a robot and he's kind of sort of under Ada's control. And I like that they're starting to kind of create their little end game there with the two of them kind of plotting and scheming, but we're starting to jump forward back to more. And I love that. I don't know what it is, but there's something really clever about the way that editing was used that made me respect the show a whole lot more, and just makes me wish that more people would tune into this show because it's doing things in a clever way that some other shows that people keep giving the views to, like Gotham or whatever, don't do. And another thing that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is really known for that really was showcased here is how they tie things back to previous seasons. There were so many callbacks in this episode that I think the episode should have been called Callback the Episode, because there's things in the background or lines mentioned that cater back to season 1, like there's a little John Garrett thing with Bill Paxton's picture right there, R.I.P. Some references to Ward's past, only an alternate version where he was in jail for arson, only instead of Garrett, somebody else came to him to recruit him into S.H.I.E.L.D. And then the biggest one is Bakshi returning, just like Trip did, with a cameo as now this propaganda leader, which also led to another thing I like about S.H.I.E.L.D. is that they're not afraid to kind of tie into some real world type of things here, especially when they kept mentioning alternative facts and propaganda. I know that some people may be sick of seeing this type of stuff on the news and here in the real world or on Facebook, but that's what makes shows like this really great, because they know how to kind of play to those things in the real world without being incredibly heavy with them, because I never found Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to be kind of heavy, and some people might get turned off by that, but I still like that they were still able to use that to tell the story within this universe and not necessarily push some kind of agenda or preach necessarily. And we finally learned what Ada has been plotting this entire time. She wants to be a real girl. She's got an Ultron complex pretty much, and I like it. I do think that on the surface level it's a little convoluted about the way that she's going at, but I guess the framework wasn't necessarily her idea, it was Radcliffe's, so she's just using it to her advantage. I understand that, but on the one hand, I feel like she could do more work in the real world, but that's just me. It's a personal thing that I'm not hitting down the writing, I'm not taking it down a notch. I'm just saying that personally, if I was in Ada's shoes, I would have tried to figure out a different form to kind of become a real person in the real world without ever going through the hassle of the framework, because I feel like she just created some troubles for herself in the framework. But at the same time, that's the only way to kind of convince Fitz, who she believes was the only capable person, to finish the project, which he does in fact do at the end of this episode, which again kind of tails back to the Darkhold. Again, callbacks. I love that everything's tying really, really nicely, and all of our characters are in play. Daisy and May are now reunited and underneath the blanket of S.H.I.E.L.D. So we got one team set. We got Fitz as well as Madame Hydra, who's recuperating. They're ready to get going, and of course in the real world, the Russian dude has finally tracked down Daisy and Sky, so now we got some hardcore implications in the real world. The only thing that I think they got up their sleeve to kind of save it up for a big surprise is Yo-Yo. Yo-Yo has been doing some shit out there. I don't know why, I can't even remember what she was doing, but she was doing something important, and I'm hoping that they find a way to kind of tie that right back around like they've done numerous times. And I guess that's the only other thing about the episode's minor flaws, that's really about it in terms of what I can comment on it, because it's one of those episodes that you find in TV that you want to call like a bridge episode, where we have characters moving from point A to point B for some kind of end game, but nothing monumental necessarily happens, but it's a necessary episode, and this was indeed a necessary episode for our characters, and it was still sprinkled with some good action moments where you got May and Daisy throwing down with some cool camera work, as well as some one-on-one conversations that were nice and tender, especially Ward and Daisy's conversation in the little newsroom. I love the conversation, because I like that this is like Ward at his peak of goodness, where he's just like, can I have my old Daisy back? Like, you never thought that Ward would be that sentimental. And he is in this alternate universe, and it's a nice break of pace from what we knew Ward for the majority of the show. So it's nice to see, and knowing that this is probably the end for him. Like, after this, we're not going to see good Ward anymore, because the framework's going to be done. We're leading up to the final climax, and chances are he's going to go out in style, because he's ready to go out from what I can tell, and it looks like the show's kind of painting that picture. So it's going to be a sad sight, but I like that they were able to take advantage of this version of the character, just like they did with the other ones. So I'm going to be giving all Madame's men, it's a handful of a title, a solid 8 out of 10. Good episode, better than the one from last week's that I thought was a little slow up until the end, but things are moving to an end game that I found. Wow. Things are moving rather nicely, and we only got 3 episodes left, and I'm genuinely nervous for our characters. So please let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this week's episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. What do you think is going to happen within the next 3 episodes now that things are moving forward and certain characters are just looking at one objective only? And do you think that somehow, some way, being that we're tying back to Darkhold technology, Ghost Rider can maybe return in some capacity? Because I feel like they're opening up the little possibility. They're opening the door slightly, turning the knob, and leaving it slightly ajar for him to maybe make that badass entrance. That would be rather cool if Ghost Rider joins the fight. Part of me doubts it, but one can only hope. Please let me know all of your theories and speculations in the comments below. Make sure you like and share this video, and don't forget to follow me on Instagram and on Twitter at DarkSpiderDavid. To keep up with all the latest Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. news and reviews, make sure you hit the subscribe button down below. Otherwise, you're gonna miss out. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.